Although China has over 1.4 billion people and is known for its bustling cities, it has amazing national parks. After spending a couple of days in Chengdu, visiting the pandas and Leishan Buddha, and eating some of the tasty local food such as hot pot, we headed north to see one of the most famous national parks in the country, Jiuzhaighou. Jiuzhaighou is often combined with Huanglong Scenic Area. So after most of the morning on a train and bus, we stepped out at 10,000 feet and were hit by the fresh air here in the northern part of Sichuan province. We boarded the cable car and quickly shot up to 11,700 feet, where we would begin hiking. On China, you almost never hike on dirt, as trails on the map are nearly always built-out wooden paths or stairs. We cruised along the wooden walkway for a peaceful mile or two until we joined the route with the majority of people who had paid for a shuttle. We approached a temple on the way up where an impromptu dance party was going on. The women had dressed up and choreographed their dance, while a couple of men joined in on the outside. However, they were clearly pretty clueless as to what the dance moves were to do. We continued on towards the pools and we joined more and more people. Even in the misty morning, the pools had a beautiful turquoise color, and they were staggered into mini pools which appeared to sit one right on top of another. We made the full loop of the top pool, doing our best to find spots where there weren't hundreds of people taking pictures, which can always be a challenge in a scenic area in China. After visiting the top pool, it was back down to the temple, where the dancing had finished, to walk through the courtyard and admire the colorful walls and decorations. Thankfully, about 95% of the people or more had taken the shuttle straight back to the entrance in the cable car, and we were happy to hike several miles back down, which would take us by several more series of pools and streams on the way back down. We cruised downhill, never touching a dirt trail even once, through the off and on rain. There were loads of pools of various shades of blue on the way down. We were impressed at how well maintained the park was and dropped down around 1,500 feet all the way until we filtered out into the main entrance of the park. After some lunch and a lot of awkward translating, we had found the 2:30 p.m. bus, which would take us all the way up, we hoped, to the town where we would stay outside of Jiuzhaighou National Park. Translating and asking for help is a constant here in China. Thankfully, after a 3-hour ride, the bus stopped just a few minutes away from our hotel we had booked for the night, and we checked into our nice mountain room, which only cost us about $30.
Woohoo! Nice room, huh? I like
it. The next morning, we walked a mile over to the entrance. Parks in China are very controlled, and at exactly 8:30 a.m. they started letting in the thousands of people through the gates to board the shuttle buses which went up to the park. There are 3 main valleys in Jiuzhaighou, and apparently the passengers had told the driver and park guide, who spoke non-stop in Mandarin, to head up to the southwest valley towards the virgin forest, so that is where we were going to start today. We jumped out of the bus at the stop by Arrow Bamboo Lake, where everyone wanted to get off, and quickly got ahead of the other 50 or so people on our bus.
Gotta love the reflection.
Yep. The alpine lakes were like glass in the early morning. It was nice and cool at 9,000 feet as we pulled out our breakfast of bananas and bread and munched away as we walked ahead of the people. Arrow Bamboo Lake was picturesque, and Panda Lake was equally as pretty, with a few paths that took us down among the smaller pools in the area. We had been one of the first buses out and were hiking faster than the groups of Chinese tourists on our own bus, so we were loving the sometimes hard-to-come-by quietness of the first couple of lakes. When we arrived at Five Flower Lake, some locals were setting up costume booths, which confused us, but we learned that this would quickly become the norm at nearly every scenic area in China, where typically women would rent traditional outfits to wear for extensive photograph sessions.
Hello! Hello!
We chuckled to ourselves and wondered if this trend would catch on if it was introduced in the United States. Thankfully, once we got past the main bridge, we could find some more peace and quiet away from the fast arriving groups of buses. During the day, the shuttle buses run constantly up and down the three valleys, making it really easy to hop on and hop off wherever you please. Our next stop of the first valley was Pearl Shoal Waterfall, which we walked alongside for a few hundred yards. The trail then dips and cuts back under the beautiful wide cascading waterfall. We were already really impressed at the beauty of Jiuzhaighou, and we were still only in the first of the three valleys for the day. We hiked on and left everyone by deciding to go around the backside of Mirror Lake, which is one of our favorite parts of the day, as we love the freedom of getting away from people and nature. In general, the Chinese tourists stuck to the short walks from the shuttle bus stops.
Look at that! It's so beautiful! Oh! Here's a pretty part. Here's a pretty part. There's another one and another one. It's great.
After a mile or two around Mirror Lake, we popped out at Huanglong Waterfall, which marked the end of the first valley, as after another 10 minutes we were at the busy junction of Sichuan, where all three valleys connect, and where restaurants, tourist shops, and shuttle bus stops were all available. We followed the signs for the shuttle up to Long Lake, which would take us up to the top of our second valley for the day.
沿着栈道往上走啊，走个750米，去游览五彩池。
Long Lake was packed with people, and looked to be the most popular lake in the park.
拍照了，拍立得，富士数码拍照。
The lake was nice, but we preferred the quieter lakes of the early morning. The second valley would be much quicker, as the seasonal lakes were dried up along the way, meaning that we would just hike a mile or so past the colorful pond to get back to another bus stop. The colorful pond lived up to its name and was a sharp turquoise color. Valley number 2 complete, and we bussed back to the hub of Sichuan for our picnic lunch of Spam sandwiches. How's the salmon? It's a nod of approval.
It is what it is. It's food, isn't it?
After lunch, it was back on the shuttle bus to Rhinoceros Lake to start in on our third and final valley.
我们的终点站是景区大门口，下一站是
Rhinoceros Lake and Tiger Lake were our first two lakes of the afternoon, and they had pretty little streams which cascaded down out of them. More beautiful waterfalls lined the paths as we made our way north, downhill in the third valley. We cruised by one turquoise pond after another as we moved away from the road and opted for the paths on the backside of the lakes that were quieter and more scenic. Sleeping Dragon Lake was next, with several trees sunk in the water just off the path. It was really nice having nearly all our hikes of the day be downhill, as we could pick shuttle stops to start at that were on the top parts of many of the lakes. Our last lake was Double Dragon Lake, with one more little waterfall before we chose to continue alongside the river to see some of the meadows in the lower part of the valley. By now it was almost 3 p.m. and we had covered all the highlights in the park. Jiuzhaighou National Park, our first national park in our 40-day stay in China, had really impressed us, and we thoroughly enjoyed a full day in this paradise of lakes and waterfalls in northern Sichuan province. We were excited to be experiencing the contrast of the lively cities and the spectacular scenic areas in the amazingly diverse country of China.